This is another archival upload of some of my previous mix critique videos. I apologize for the vertical format that this video is about to switch to. This is numbers 160 through 165. This was sent in by James. Alright, so I really like the orchestral intro, though some of those higher horn notes sounded like they were distorting a little bit. I don't know if that was intentional, but something I noticed. When the rest of the instruments kick in, the drums sound like they might be a little over the top, but let's keep listening. Yeah, the drums are definitely clipping. And I mean, so far, the instruments sound pretty good, but the biggest thing is the drums are clipping really bad. They also don't really sound like they're sitting in the mix well, just EQ-wise and overall level-wise. They sound like they're poking out over the top, and they don't really sound like they're gelling in with the other instruments. That being said, everything is clipping, and I feel like this is an issue you had on the last track you sent me. So maybe next time, send me a track without the limiter on the mix bus, and if you have a clipper on the mix bus, without that too, so I can hear what the mix sounds like before it gets squashed in that end processing there. The cymbals were also getting a little harsh and washy there for a minute. Yeah, man, so overall it sounds like more of a mastering problem than a mix problem, really, except for maybe the drums. Like I said, the drums especially are clipping really hard. I don't know if you did that intentionally, but despite the fact they're clipping really hard, they're also way too far over the top of everything else. They're cutting through the mix a little too much. You need to get those to sit better in the mix with everything else. So that's really your main problems, is the mastering on the track and the drums on the track. So work on those two things. This was sent in by Isaac. The lead guitar sounds pretty good. The drums sound all right, they're maybe a little too roomy. The rhythm guitar is a real problem. That rhythm guitar that's just doing like those single chord strums, it's distorting a lot, and I don't think it's supposed to. And the distortion aside, it's also just way too loud compared to everything else. The other thing is the overall volume on everything. It seems like you pushed it way too much. The volume you're reaching with the lack of compression on everything, it's no wonder there's things that are distorting, especially the things that are poking out so far over the top. You're probably clipping your master output, because with the volume it's at, this should sound way more compressed than it does. And if you don't have the right amount of compression when you're trying to push the volume this much, it's going to clip, it's going to distort, and it's not going to sound good. The vocals sound pretty good, but they're not cutting through the mix enough. You got to find a way to EQ them so that they're actually coming through everything else. All right, man, so I like the vibe of the song. Like, it's a cool song. Your drums, you need to record them in a room with better treatment. If you can't, try to EQ some of that room sound out of there, because it sounds like it was recorded in a small bedroom. The other thing is, if you're going to push the overall volume this much, you need to have more compression on things to keep the peaks from distorting the way they are. Like, it's distorting in a lot of spots, and it's not doing it in a pleasant way. This was sent in by Ryan.
Come around, heat filled to the brim, circle back to emotions, felt defeat from within. I'm honest, thoughts waste.
Bro, if you're gonna work with a rapper, you gotta work with one that, you know, has rhythm.
People don't see the pain in me. Man, I guess it ain't plain.
About a minute in, he's suddenly a lot more time, so that's good. The drums are really overcompressed. It sounds like you have a clipper on there. Either that or you have your attack time set way too fast, but the drums in general are way overcompressed. Like, they don't sound great. You're missing a lot of low mid information. Like, your low mids have like a massive hole in it. The low mids is where most of the low end energy is gonna come from, so that needs to be more full, because that's what's gonna give people the low end feeling on most playback systems.
Think I operate the cleanest.
You also gotta work on your vocal EQ. The vocals sound really muddy, at least in this section. That should not sound like that. It was also probably recorded in a very untreated room, because you're getting like a little bit of a slap back room sound that doesn't sound great. You want rap vocals to be really crisp and clean overall, which means you need a really dead space to record them in. So with the vocal EQ, I don't know what's going on, but the vocals are getting thinner and thinner as the track goes on. I don't know if that was intentional or what, but it feels like a really weird choice to me. Like, the vocals should be cutting through above everything else. This was sent in by Christian. Not big on the guitar tone, like there's way too much reverb on it, which isn't great. Kind of the same thing on the drums, but that might be the room they were recorded in. But overall, everything just feels like it's not gelling together. The drums are sticking out a lot over the top, and the bass and the guitar sound like completely separate, like they need to blend together to some extent. It just all sounds like separate instruments. It doesn't sound like instruments playing together.
I'd rather feel so low.
Vocals sound okay, but they sound a little muddy. Again, they might have been recorded in a really poorly treated room, and they're not cutting through over everything quite enough, and they're definitely not compressed enough. I'm really disappointed with the drum sound because like they don't sound that bad. They sound compressed pretty well, but they don't sound like they're quite doing what I would want them to do. And I think that's partially because there's too much of that room sound. I need to hear more of the drum shells, and they also need a lot more saturation. They sound weak. They sound like they're lacking harmonic information, and it's stuff that compression clearly won't do because the compression actually sounds pretty good on the drums, but they're still not giving me that fullness that I need from them. So Christian, I really liked the song from a songwriting perspective. Like if this song had the mix it deserves, this would end up in my normal rotation. Yeah, man, I'm disappointed because I really liked the song itself, but the mix is lacking. This was sent in by Tristan. I wasn't really big on that intro and how it went into the verse because especially with that sweep up at the end, it really felt like the song was about to explode and then it didn't. It was really light. It was really lackluster. Really not a fan of that choice. That being said, the verse sounds cool. The vocals sound really good. I like the atmosphere going on. I like the filtered drums. So they're there, but they're not overpowering. Again, with the build, like it's about to explode and then it just doesn't. Like you're teasing the listener too much. You might be able to get away with that once, but like honestly, after that second one, I would have turned it off because it just pissed me off. Overall, the mix isn't bad so far. The drums need a little more energy, which is probably just more compression, or really it would be ideal if the drummer just hit the drums harder during tracking. The rhythm guitar during the chorus is a little brittle, it's a little thin. It's got a lot of like harsh upper mid frequencies, but it doesn't have a lot of bottom end. It's not really gelling with the bass and the low mids like it needs to. Cymbals are also way too loud. Honestly, the drums are poking out a little too much over everything in the mix, so that definitely tells me that you need either a little more mix bus compression, more likely more drum bus compression, just more compression on the drums in general to, first of all, that'll make them a little fatter, it'll make them feel like they hit harder, and it'll also make them sit better in the mix. This was sent in by Mad County.
This hell. You can know.
All right, man, you're letting me down just like the last mix did. It felt like it was building and it should have exploded there, and it just it got a little bit bigger there, but didn't really explode the way that it should have after that intro section. Just, it doesn't flow right. Also, the guitar in this section is still as thin as it was in the intro, and personally, I think at the very least, the guitar should have the filter widen there so it sounds like more of the guitar frequency range once it gets out of the intro section.
In this hell. 2 shots.
Dude, 2 times in a row, both you and the last guy. You get to a part where it should blow up and it doesn't. Like, bad songwriting, man. It's boring.
Let me fuck this up again.
And when it does actually explode in what I assume is the chorus, like it's not big enough. The drums sound really thin and like they were recorded in a really crappy bedroom. It doesn't sound like a big chorus, and it's just the most lackluster chorus. Your issues here are, it's not even the mix, because we can't even start to worry about the mix until everything before the mixing process is done well. The song is boring as all hell. The tones are not great, especially the drum tone in the chorus. Like, you need to get your source tones better. You need to get your arrangement better. You need to have a song that's actually entertaining. It's bland and it's repetitive and it's boring.